Welcome back to Teen Storytime. My name is Aryn, and I am a librarian with the Hillsborough Public Libraries, and today we are finishing up the very last section of Alanna by Tamora Pierce. We started chapter 7 in the last video, and because it was a longer chapter, I went ahead and split it up into two sections. This is the very last part of this book. We're finishing it up today. So let's go ahead and get started right where we left off. There was no sand in the Black City, no dust, nothing to show that centuries had passed since people lived there. The streets were hard, black, and bare, shining in the sun. The alien buildings, beautifully and carefully carved, rose without break from the rock of the streets. If any tower was not part of the massive rock between their feet, they did not find it. The city rose like a cluster of needles stabbing into the sky. "It's very nice," Alanna said with approval when they were just inside the gate. "Now let's go back." She remembered suddenly the vision she had seen of a black city not once, but twice. Was she meant to be here? Well, if she was scared. "You can go," her friend replied, running a hand over a carving. "I'm looking around some more." Alanna shrugged and followed, her hand on Lightning's hilt. Maybe this is what she had to do. They explored silently, peering into echoing buildings while the noon sun beat down on their heads. The great towers were bare of everything, furniture, cloth, glass, except the carvings that covered the entire city. Alanna examined those carvings with care. They showed strange animals and stranger people, men with the heads of lions, women with birds' wings, great cats with human faces. Alanna had never seen anything like it. Now that she had, she wished she hadn't. "I don't see bodies or skeletons," Jonathan whispered. "Those young Bazir probably just took off for the cities." "Then why are you whispering?" Her voice was equally soft. The prince looked around, searching for windows and doorways. "I'm not sure. Well, yes I am. This place is evil. Whatever has or hasn't happened here, the city is still evil, through and through." "I'm glad we left the horses outside," was her only answer. As they ventured deeper and deeper into the city, she kept close watch on the doors and windows around them. They turned a sharp corner, and the city's central square lay before them. It was a wide, flat reach of stone, carefully polished and yet reflecting no light from its surface. Alanna decided it was like staring into a huge pit covered with glass. It took all of her nerve to step onto it, but step she did. The building in the center of the square called to her. Its sides were columns of plain black stone. The roof separated itself from the columns with a border of carving covered with gold. Topping a long rise of stairs, great doors beckoned. She and Jonathan climbed up to those doors, feeling smaller and smaller as they climbed. The doors stood open and waiting. Like the stone of the city, the black wood of the doors was covered with exotic pictures. The edges of the carvings were lined with gold. When they reached the doors, Lightning began humming, its hilt trembling in Alanna's hand. "Jonathan, my sword," she stammered. "Hmm?" The prince was eyeing the doors. "I don't think we should go in. My sword it's humming." Jonathan shook his head. "I'm going to find out what's going on." He stepped inside the temple. Alanna tightened her grip on the sword hilt and followed. "You know I can't let you come in here by yourself," she snapped as she caught up with him. Jonathan grinned at her. "Of course. Why do you think I asked Uncle to let you come?" "You planned this all along," she accused. "I hate mysteries. This place has been one for years. I knew you'd have the guts to come with me." "But Gary, Alex, Raoul," she protested. They would have grumbled all the way here and then knocked me over the head when I tried to enter the city. I knew that you'd come and keep quiet." "That's because I'm the only one with insanity in my family," she grumbled. Jonathan laughed, and the sound was eaten up by the air inside the temple. They walked forward slowly, their hands on their sword hilts. There were no windows or torches, but a weird yellow-green light came from somewhere. The walls were carved from the glassy stone, catching the light and making it ripple along their surfaces. At the end of the chamber was a large block of dark stuff that swallowed the light without reflecting it. "The altar," Jonathan whispered. The light moved in a blinding wave across the room. When the eyes of the two humans cleared, 10 men and women were standing in front of the altar. Even the smallest of the women was taller than Duke Gareth, and they were all so beautiful that it hurt to look at them for very long. Their power flashed and rippled around their bodies in a dance of green light. "It has been so long," a woman in red said with a sigh. "And they are so small." One woman stretched out a hand to them. Her fingernails were long and red like claws. Feel the life in them, Illyria. It's like a flame. These two will be enough for us all. Alanna edged closer to Jonathan's side. Lightning was trembling in her grip. This was your idea, she muttered. Who are you? Jonathan demanded of the strangers. His voice was clear and calm. He showed no sign of fear. They speak, a man being sneered. And look at the little one. It will hit us with its sword. The beings, the nameless ones, laughed. Alanna shivered at the cruelty in the sound. The largest of the men waved a careless hand. He was broad-shouldered and black-bearded, a giant even among these creatures. Your mortal weapons will not hurt us, he boomed. We are the Ysandir. We are immortal. Our flesh is not like yours. You cannot keep us here, Jonathan replied steadily. We are hungry. The clawed woman's eyes glinted. We have not fed for one of your years. The goat herders are too good at keeping their young from us. A woman with hair whiter than snow purred. He thinks his father, the king, will hunt for them and destroy us. They laughed. Alanna wanted to put her hands over her ears and shut out that dreadful sound, but she forced herself to remain still, moving her feet so that she would be totally balanced when the attack came. The black-bearded one smiled. I am Elan, chief of the Ysandir. I have fed on hundreds of your mortal lives. Let your father bring his armies. We will feed on their souls, and we will be strong. We will break the curse of fire the Bazir have put on this place. Jonathan took a deep breath. I don't need my father's soldiers. I am going to leave here, and you are not going to keep me. Listen to the princeling, mocked the red-clawed woman. How you roar, young lion. Don't you dare speak so to him, Alanna cried. She drew lightning in a swift movement. The crystal on the hilt blazed out, throwing a harsh light into the darkness around them. The Ysandir shrank back against the altar, trying to keep the light from their eyes. So, you come armed with their weapons, Elan said. But can you use them? Elanda, said Illyria, the woman in red. I cannot see into this one's mind. It is hiding something. Where did you get the sword? She snapped, staring at Alanna. None of your business, Alanna replied, focusing on the red-gowned being. For a second, she felt a touch in her mind, like claws raking through her head. She yelled. Lightning flashed, and the woman with claws, Elanda, clapped against the altar. She was gasping for breath. Don't give them an opening like that again, Jonathan warned. Already the air around him was shimmering with blue light. Alanna brought up her own shield of violet magic, keeping lightning outside, just in case. I didn't plan to give them that one, she murmured. Elanda had gotten her breath back. Suddenly she was laughing. The others all watched her. In all my centuries, she gasped finally, I have not known such a jest. Young lion, see your companion for what she really is. She? Jonathan whispered. Before Alanna could bring Lightning's crystal up, power from Elanda and Elan smashed into her defenses, breaking through. She doubled over in pain. It was over as swiftly as it began, with one difference. Her clothes were gone. All she wore was her belt and scabbard. The Ysandir were laughing with Elanda. A girl! His companion is a girl! The one called Illyria laughed scornfully as Alanna tried to cover herself with her hands. A girl who hopes to protect her prince? A jest indeed! Alanna held up Lightning's crystal, letting its light burn into their eyes. The crystal dimmed, and she shouted, I may be a girl, but I can defend or attack, as well as any boy. She looked at Jonathan. Her friend was openly staring. Highness, she whispered, blushing deep red. He pulled off his tunic and handed it to her. Later. Just who are you? She pulled the tunic on. Jonathan was so tall that his tunic covered her thighs. A small thing, but one she appreciated just now. Alanna of Trebund, Highness. Elan's booming voice pulled their attention back to their enemies. Separate them. Instinctively, Alanna gripped Jonathan's hand. Sapphire and amethyst power collected at their intertwined fingers. The wall of power, Jonathan hissed. What's the spell? Alanna started the verses. Jonathan's voice joined hers, the words thundering in the great chamber. Slowly, a wall of blue-violet light rose between them and the Ysandir. The immortals covered their eyes, unable to look at it for long. They retreated. You defy us, Elan cried. Pay the price, mortals. Tearing pain shot through their joined hands. Don't let them part us, John said. He held on so tightly that Alanna's bones creaked. She ignored the pain, keeping her mind on the wall. The Ysandir came closer, their bodies shining with yellow-green magic. Furious, they threw bolts of power at their prey. John and Alanna concentrated, bringing up all their willpower to keep their defenses strong. The wall stood. Two immortals touched it and screamed. They vanished with a flash. So you can die, Alanna taunted. You can feel pain. How long do you think she will last? Illyria asked Jonathan softly. Another few moments. Not even that? She is a girl. She is weak. She will give way, and then where will you be? It was the same small voice that taunted Alanna from within whenever she faced a taller, stronger opponent. You think so? She shouted furiously. Then try this on for size. A slender thread of violet fire snaked through the wall, wrapping itself around Illyria's throat and tightening. The immortal did not even have the chance to scream before she fell to the ground and vanished. Alanna didn't have time to gloat. 3 women joined hands to form a deadly-looking triangle. Power collected in the center of their formation in a small, evil ball. "Jonathan?" Alanna whispered. This kind of magic was beyond her, but she knew that Jonathan had spent more time studying books of sorcery than she had. Jonathan spoke, using words that she had never heard before. Alanna felt her own magic flowing into her friend's body. Soon the prince reached through the wall. Magic lanced from his fingertips, shattering the triangle. Alanna blinked, trying to clear her eyes of the blaze that had been the 3 Isandir. 5 remained. The red-headed woman and the brunette with the hungry eyes screamed and threw themselves on the wall. They blazed and vanished. The others drew back. Alanna remembered something. "John, fire?" she hissed. "Of course," he whispered. Duke Roger had not taught them that spell, but Duke Gareth had. The pages had been camping in the royal forests. Before that night, most of them had not known that Duke Gareth even possessed the gift. "It's the first spell any Naxon learns if he has the gift," the Duke explained. "Put that flint away, Alex. I'll show you." Together now, Alanna and Jonathan whispered the spell that Duke Gareth taught them, changing some of the words to meet their need. "Bright flame, light fire, around Isandir, burn higher. Light the fire, bright the flame, burn Isandir in Mithros' name." "Elan!" cried one of the 2 male Isandir remaining. Fire roared up outside the wall, reaching with eager fingers for the one who cried out. He screamed and disappeared, the fire vanishing with him. Only 2 remained of the Isandir, Elan and Elanda. Alanna gulped. These 2 had joined hands, and power gathered to them. "Ak Hoft!" Elan cried. The wall vanished as if it had never been. "The others were weak and greedy," Elan said with a sneer. "We are not." "We are the first," Elanda added. "We were here before all the others, and we shall remain." "Who are you?" Jonathan asked, trying to catch his breath. Alanna wiped her sweat-beaded face on her sleeve. She was tired. So tired her bones ached. "We are gods and the children of gods," the woman said. "We were here before your old ones, and we laughed when their cities fell." Alanna felt a return of her old spirit. "A likely story," she said with a sniff. "Gods don't die. You do." "You think you know all, mortal? You know nothing. Even immortals die when they weaken. Elanda and I are the strongest. You will not weaken us." "You give a lot of big talk," Alanna retorted. "I believe in deeds, not words." Jonathan's voice was even and strong. "Your time is past. You no longer belong here." Elan and Elanda raised their linked hands, chanting in a language that made the 2 humans shudder. Outside, thunder crashed. The weird glow that lighted the temple vanished. The only light now came from their magics. "Jonathan?" Alanna whispered. He looked down at her. "We're not beaten yet, Alanna. Can you become what you were the night that you saved me from the fever, when you brought me back from death?" "I don't know," she whispered, eyeing the Isandir. "You have to, and you must take me with you. Otherwise—" Jonathan didn't have to elaborate. The light of the immortal's magic was getting stronger. Alanna looked at their linked hands, shining with blue-violet of their combined gifts. Already she was falling out of herself into that light. She could feel Jonathan with her. Her eyes burned as their magics grew brighter and formed a globe around them. "Goddess," she whispered in her woman's voice. "Great Mother." "Dark Lady," a man added softly. "Open the way for us." Did she really hear Jonathan, the man? She wasn't sure. Needle-sharp bolts of magic were lancing into their interlocked hands. Pain shot through their physical shells. Elan and Elanda stood before them in a wheel of yellow-green power. Fire streamed from them and broke on the newly formed globe of magic that held the bodies of John and Alanna. For the second time in her life, Alanna heard that female voice, the one that made her scream with pain. This time she didn't scream. She was too busy concentrating on keeping their globe of power in one piece. The voice echoed in her mind. "Place your trust in the sword and fight." Alanna had dropped lightning during the earlier fight. Now the sword jumped into her free hand, the crystal blazing. She could feel it trembling as she gripped the hilt. "Just don't let go of me," Jonathan cautioned. "I won't." Holding Jonathan fast, she stepped forward. Lightning sang in her hand. A black, 2-edged blade appeared in Elan's free hand. Like Jonathan, Elanda did not let go of her companion. She stayed close, keeping step behind him. Elan brought his sword down in a ferocious arc. Alanna blocked it swiftly, her arm muscles screaming as she stopped the down-sweeping blade. Lightning blazed, and miraculously did not break. The dark sword drank in lightning's fire as Elan backed away. His big chest was heaving, and there was sweat on his face. Alanna circled him, her eyes never leaving his sword. Jonathan squeezed her hand reassuringly. She felt better now. This is what she was trained for. She turned all her attention to the swords, letting Jonathan control their sorcery. Elan, suddenly wary of her, lanced at her in a series of rapid thrusts. Alanna stopped each of them, feeling her confidence grow each time she stopped the Asandir. Immortal he might be. Swordsman he was not. Jonathan was speaking softly, uttering words she paid no attention to. The fire surrounded him, and Alanna blazed, and the girl yelled with triumph. She swung lightning up and around in a complex move that brought the swords together, hilt to hilt. Ilan's sword shattered with the impact, and Alanna slashed at the immortal's linked hands. The globe of yellow-green light exploded, and the two Isandirs screamed with rage and fear. Jonathan uttered one word of command, throwing the last reserves of their gift into the spell. Blue-violet light flooded over the immortals. They flared up like a giant torch as everything went black. Alanna and Jonathan awoke on the floor of the chamber. The Asandir had vanished. Only a scorch mark in the perfect floor remained of Elan and Alanda. Near Alanna was lightning, the sword's tip blackened. "Are you all right?" Jonathan asked wearily. He pulled himself to his feet. Alanna couldn't swallow a tiny moan. Every muscle screamed with pain. "I'm smarting a little," she admitted. "How about you?" "Smarting is an understatement. Come on, I want to get away from here before we try to rest." Jonathan stumbled over to her sword and picked it up. "It's still warm," he said with awe. Alanna rose, somehow. She felt as if someone had pounded her with hammers. "Think there are any more of them?" She accepted her sword and sheathed it carefully. The prince shook his head. "I'd say we've seen the last of the Asandir. Come, we'll lean on each other." They made it somehow to the city walls, where moonlight and darkness waited patiently for them. Jonathan felt his saddle and then the saddle blanket. "They're wet," he said. "It's been raining out here." Alanna pulled herself onto her mare's back with every last bit of her strength. She had no wish to comment. Jonathan headed east to a small oasis they knew was nearer to the Black City than Persepolis. Alanna wasn't about to argue that they were going the wrong way. The oasis was closer than home, and all she wanted to do was lie down. The horses contentedly cropped grass, while their owners bathed their aching faces and hands in the cool water. Jonathan finally leaned back against a palm tree. "I wish I'd thought to bring food." Alanna lay flat on the grass nearby. "I'm happy just to be alive." They rested in silence for a while, breathing the fresh desert air deeply. They watched the sun set in pools of rose and orange, thinking they had never seen a lovelier sunset. Darkness came, and thousands of stars. "Moonrise soon," Alanna said at last. "We could try for Persepolis then." "We'd never make it," Jonathan's quiet voice came from the shadows. "We're in trouble as it is. Spending the night won't make it any worse." There was a long silence once again. Finally, Alanna said, "I suppose you'd like an explanation?" "Yes." She sighed. "It's a long story." "We have time," he said comfortably. "I don't intend to move till I hear it. You must admit I've had a shock." "I'm sorry," she said humbly. "I haven't wanted to lie to you." "I should hope so. You're the worst liar I've ever met." He thought about this for a moment, then added, "Or maybe the best. Now I'm all confused. What about your twin?" "He didn't want to be a knight," she replied simply. "He wants to be a great sorcerer." She sighed. "Today was more Thom's sort of thing than mine. Father was going to send me to the convent and Thom to the palace. I didn't want to learn to be a lady." Jonathan's chuckle gave her courage. "Old Maud knew. She said it was right, and, well, I talked Coram around." Jonathan knew Coram well. "How?" he asked curiously. "I threatened to make him see things that weren't there. He doesn't like that." John chuckled again, imagining Coram seeing visions. "And your father?" "He doesn't care about Thom or me," she said flatly. "I'd want to be a warrior maiden and do great deeds. Thom likes sorcery, and father hates it. The only way that we could get what we wanted was to lie. I had to pretend to be a boy. I was always better at the fighting arts than Thom anyway." "Whose idea was it to make the switch?" "Mine," she admitted ruefully. "Thom might have thought of it, but he's the careful one. I knew what I wanted, and I didn't mind taking a risk or two. I enjoyed the life." "You could have been caught at any time. You could have been a weakling. Roger could have found out." "There have been warrior maids before. They weren't weak, and, well, I think my gift protects me from Duke Roger. I'm not sure, but I think so. And you can't say I haven't proved myself." "Of course you have. Often. You do better than most of us." She picked at the grass. "I had to." "Alanna. It's a pretty name," he said thoughtfully. "Thom, Maud, Coram, who else knows?" "George and his mother." "You trusted George?" "He can be trusted," she said hotly. "Besides, I needed help once, and I knew he'd never give me away. He's my friend, John." "You called me John." "You saved my life back there." "You saved mine. We wouldn't have made it out without each other. I knew I was right to take you." She lay silent for a while, listening to the sounds in the night. At last she gathered her courage. "What are you going to do about me?" His voice was surprised. "Do? I'm not doing anything. As far as I'm concerned, you earned the right to try for your shield a long time ago." She heard him moving. "No one will learn your secret from me, Alanna." Her chin trembled. Tears stung her eyes. "Thank you, Your Highness." He knelt beside her. "I thought you were calling me John, Alanna. You're crying." It's been such an awful day, she sobbed. Hesitantly, the young man put his arms around her and drew her against him. And now you're being so kind. She wept into his shirt. Not kind, he told her. Grateful, admiring. You're getting my shirt wet. She laughed and straightened, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, John. I haven't done that for a long time. I believe it, he said, sitting back on his heels. I don't think you cried even when Raylan was beating on you, and you were just a little boy. Girl, Mithros, I'm confused, he whistled. Gods, that's why you never went swimming. All those times you've seen us naked. Me naked. She gripped his arm. John, you start to act like that, and I'm finished. You've got to go on treating me like any other boy, or I'm through. He sat beside her. What insanity! But you're right. She could feel his eyes on her face, although it was too dark to see him clearly. How do you plan to be a warrior maiden if no one knows you're a girl? I'm going to tell everyone, on my 18th birthday. What will you do after that? She could see him grin. Mithros' uncle will have fits. She relaxed. I'm going to travel and do great deeds. He ruffled her hair. I believe you. Don't forget your friends when you're a legend. She laughed. You'll be more famous than me. You'll be king one day. And I'll need all my friends. Will you still serve me when you're doing great deeds? I'm your vassal, she said seriously. I'll never forget that. Excellent. He rose with a slight moan. I want to keep one of the best fencers at court on my side. I'm going to bathe. Don't watch. She grinned. I never watch. She turned her back as he walked to the water. Dreamily, she stared at the sky, listening to John yelp as he splashed chilly water onto his aching body. His voice startled her when he spoke. You're only that quiet when you're worrying about something. What's bothering you now? 2 things, she admitted. The Asandir. We have no way of knowing if they're gone for good or that we got all of them. I know that we did, Jonathan replied. Sometimes a man has to rely on his instincts. The Asandir are gone forever. Doesn't it seem, well, strange that a boy and a girl were able to destroy the Bazir demons? You're forgetting, he reminded her gently. We had help. Even the Bazir demons couldn't stand against the gods. I suppose so, she said dubiously. I know so. Jonathan climbed from the pool and hurried into his clothes. Your turn, and keep talking. It'll frighten any animals away. Don't you watch, she warned as she stripped and plunged into the chilly water. Jonathan chuckled. Not me. You're too skinny and too good with a sword. You said 2 things were bothering you. What's the other one? Alanna shook soggy hair from her eyes, trying to decide how she could best say what she was thinking. She was about to tread on very dangerous ground. Doesn't it strike you as odd, the way Duke Roger warned us to stay away from the Black City? She climbed out of the oasis and pulled on the overlarge tunic once more. You mean the way he practically dared us, well, me, to come here? Alanna sat beside him, trying to see her friend's face in the desert night. You knew? She whispered, horrified. You knew that Duke Roger was sending you to almost certain death? His grip on her arm was painful. Now that I do not believe, he said sternly. Roger is my only cousin and one of my best friends. He taught me to ride. He would never, never do the thing you're suggesting, Alanna. Never. He sent me here because he thought I might have a chance to rid Tortall of a scourge, and I did, with your help. He must have known I'd take you with me. I'm sure by now he has the whole story of what happened the night I had the sweating fever. He did Tortall a favor, and he did me a favor. People will think twice before they take on a prince or a king who can defeat demons. Why didn't he do it himself? She asked. Why risk the only heir to the throne? Perhaps he doesn't have the other powers helping him, as they seem to be helping us. And that's enough for this discussion. I would trust Roger with my life, and with yours. If he had wanted the throne, he could have had it all these years past. So let's change the subject, all right? There are too many perhapses in that, Alanna thought rebelliously, but she did as she was told. After all, Jonathan was older and wiser and far better acquainted with Duke Roger. But she still thought that the Duke of Conte never expected them to return from the Black City. They both found comfortable spots beneath the same tree, stretching out for a night's sleep. Alanna was gazing at the distant outline of the Black City when John said, Alan, Alanna, perhaps you'll help me with a decision I have to make. Relief made her smile. At least he wasn't angry because she had said what she had about his cousin. I can try. What with Gary and Alex and Raoul becoming knights at the same time I do, it makes competition for squires pretty fierce. So I've noticed, she said dryly. He chuckled. Who do you think I should pick? Alanna sat up on her elbow. A week ago, she would have told him to pick Joffrey or Douglas. But she had not been to the Black City then. She had not proved to the Asandir what a girl could be one of the worst enemies that they had ever faced. But what if she had not gone to the Black City? Duke Gareth had mentioned that, with a deal more practice, she could become one of the finest swordsmen at court. In archery, she hit the target every time. The masters who taught her tactics and logic said that she was sometimes brilliant. Miles said that she was far more intelligent than many adults. She had bested Raylan of Malvin, and in some strange way, she had won her sword. All at once, she felt different inside her own skin. "Me," she said at last. "You should pick me." "But you're a girl." It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. "So?" she demanded. "Even Captain Sklaw says I'll be a swordsman yet. I'm as good an archer as Alex, and he's a boy and a squire. I'm a better tracker than Raoul. And have I ever failed you? Back there, or when you had the fever?" "I'm glad you agree with my reasons," he interrupted calmly. "I told Father that you'd probably accept." Alanna swallowed hard. "Before we left, I told him I wanted you for my squire. He didn't seem very surprised." Jonathan wiggled, trying to find a softer spot on the ground. But isn't it different, now that you know that you're a girl?" "No, not in the way you mean. Girl, boy, or dancing bear, you're the finest page, the finest squire to be, at court." He chuckled. "I almost had to fight Gary for you. He said it wasn't fair, me getting the best because I'm the prince." He took her hand. "Alanna of Trebund, I will be honored if you will serve as my squire." Alanna kissed his hand, blinking back tears. "My life and sword are yours, Highness." He spoiled the dignity of the moment by ruffling her hair. "Now get some sleep." He settled back and closed his eyes. "You know," he murmured, "I'd almost rather face old Elan again than Lord Martin in a temper." "I'll blame it all on you," she replied sleepily. "See if I don't." He dozed off quickly. Alanna lay awake a little while longer, watching the dark towers of the Black City in the distance. If there were any more Isandir about, she was too tired to care. She wished that she had John's faith in Duke Roger, but she knew that she wasn't going to get it. Still, she could figure out what the Duke of Conte wanted later. As John said, there was morning and Lord Martin to face, and it was time at last to sleep. That is the end of Alanna, the First Adventure by Tamora Pierce. Join us next time when we'll be starting another book. I do not know what we're going to be reading yet, and I would love some suggestions from all of you in the comments. For a question for today, as we finish things up, what do you think of John's reaction to finding out Alanna was a girl? Is it what you expected, or did he behave differently than you expected? Let me know, and I will see you all in the next video.